Hello, everybody, and welcome to Red Wings Daily, presented to you by FanArch. I'm your host, Kirk MckNight, coming to you from the southwest corner of Washington State, 2,454 miles from Little Caesars Arena, and another several hundred miles on top of that from the Prudential Center in New Jersey. Now, the Prudential Center, otherwise known as the Rock, was the host of last night's loss for the Red Wings to the Devils, 4-3 in regulation. So no team points for the Red Wings after last night's game, but a couple of positives that they could take away. They made it close. Larkin scored in the third period to make it 4-3 Devils, and they were on the doorstep a few times there late in the game, and as the seconds were winding down, they just couldn't put one in the back of the net. So New Jersey wins, and the Red Wings lose. A few fights break out as the horn sounded, but we're going to introduce a new segment in today's program. It's called Tantrum Tuesday. Now, Tantrum Tuesday will take a look at a fight, whether it be in the Red Wings game itself or around the league, that maybe brought some attention. Since the Red Wings had a pretty decent fight between JT Compher and Stefan Noesen, we'll talk about that one. Now, this whole fight started after Compher boarded Nico Hischier, and it was a pretty ugly hit. Hischier had to leave the game, go down the tunnel, and Noesen waited until Compher tried on a breakaway, missed the shot, and then he went after him, and the fight ensued. It was a pretty decent fight. It lasted a little bit of time. Wasn't one of those where they were doing the rinse cycle and going round and round or anything like that, but it lasted a little bit of time. The refs let them duke it out. But one thing I want to talk about, though, is the fact that with Rantanen's recent game misconducts over there in Dallas, these are the times where you don't really want to have a situation like you had if you're Compher. Now, I watched the replay, and Hischier hit his face against the bank last night. Pretty ugly hit that Compher put on him. Now, if you've ever read The Voices of Hockey, my book, you'll know that there are times where some event happens where then they'll implement some kind of, whether it be restructuring of the playing surface, whether it be putting up a net, whether it be putting up glass, or whether it be just introducing a whole new rule. The NHL has been known to do that for decades. And so what I want to basically emphasize on this is the fact that Compher needs to be careful when he does a hit like that and a cross check and put somebody in the boards, because with Rantanen already being fresh off of his 2-game misconducts and his now suspension, the league is looking at these things with a microscope, as they always will. You do not want to be in their crosshairs when they do that and they put it under the microscope, because you may find yourself in a lot bigger fine than you would have had something like Rantanen's hits on Romanov and Coronado last week not happen. So obviously a little bit more scrutiny from the refs, from the officials, from Bettman. You just want to be careful in these kinds of situations and not let something like that happen, because you could find yourself a little bit emptier in the pockets. Now, as a result of last night's regulation loss, the Red Wings are going to come into Tuesday's standings with a game, with Tampa having a game in hand and being up 1 point. So they got leapfrogged, the Lightning, as a result of their win over the Philadelphia Flyers. Basically, the Red Wings are now standing at second in the Atlantic. Now, it is going to be a season full of ups, downs, all kinds of positioning, so it's nothing to panic about just yet. Another thing about the Red Wings and their standings is they still have a game in hand on the Boston Bruins, and they're a point up on them. And another thing to take away from it is they're still a point up on the Senators. The Senators, thanks to LA. Thank you, LA, for that regulation win against the Senators there back in Los Angeles, because that loss, that regulation loss, kept the Senators from leapfrogging the Red Wings as well. So they're staying at second, coming back home Wednesday night to take on the Predators. So it should be a good opportunity for the Red Wings, especially against a Nashville team that has just really been struggling these 2 last seasons, especially all the money they spent. I won't say it enough, but you've got to be disappointed. I went to a Nashville game last season when they played the Blue Jackets, and it was, it wasn't late in the season. It was in the first month of the season, but it was enough into the season, and they had such a bad start that the stands were practically empty, and the impatience on the crowd really showed. So just taking that into note and thinking about the game Wednesday night, hopefully the Red Wings can get another 2 points and maybe solidify themselves a little bit, maybe jump back over Tampa Bay depending on what they do in their game and get back on top in the Atlantic Division. Now, one of the 3 goals scored by the Red Wings was done by James Van Riemsdyk, and he is going to be our spotlight player for today because the veteran is definitely showing his presence. Now, when we talk about veterans on the Red Wings, we obviously want to think about Kane and DeBrincat, but if you want to get a feel for how long Van Riemsdyk has been in the NHL, his rookie season was 2009, 2010. So his rookie season, he made it all the way to the Stanley Cup final. Of course, it was against Patrick Kane and the Chicago Blackhawks, and the Flyers basically, obviously, weren't going to beat that budding mountain, that budding dynasty that the Chicago Blackhawks were. So you get a little taste of that, and it carries some fuel for you. Now, Van Riemsdyk kind of has a sandwich in his career between Philadelphia and Toronto. He had a few years in Philadelphia, had a few years in Toronto, and then had another few years. So it's kind of like Philadelphia is the bread, Toronto's the meat, but still, having played 17 seasons in the league, he's got 329 goals. He scored a second goal of the season last night against the Devils, and he's playing on a line with Finney on the power play. We obviously know the power play unit out there with DeBrincat, Larkin, Kane, Seider, obviously a number 1. But let's not forget about this other line that's on the power play, and Van Riemsdyk's on it there with Emmett Finney, Finns as I like to call him, and Kopp. Now, one thing that we should take away from this is Van Riemsdyk, having played, this is his 17th season, and this is Finn's first season. So I really like it when McClellan has these matchups and has these lines where they have the veterans with the young ones, because that's the way of kind of slingshotting the young ones to having that experience under their belt, really gaining some wisdom in their first season out there. So I always like to see that. I like to see Kane sometimes on that line over there with Finney as well, just in just when it's a non-power play situation. These are 2 very key players, 2 veterans that have been around for a long time, have a lot of goals under their belt, Kane and Van Riemsdyk, and it's a good learning curve for somebody like Finns to go through in order to really solidify themselves going on into their sophomore campaign. And we'll start to see how much growth really shows. We'll start to see it in the stats. We've already been seeing Finns on some of these goals, some of these assists he's got, and I can't say it enough, but when you throw somebody, a veteran like Van Riemsdyk or Kane, on those lines with them, he's experienced the seniority around him, not only just on a regular line, but during the power play, like I said. So that is going to translate into a lot of knowledge that he can carry with him into season 2. Now, speaking of Van Riemsdyk, he is going to be the subject in tonight's No Cap Recap. Now, if you have not tuned into the show before and do not know what the No Cap Recap is, I'll take a post-game press conference moment, read it out, then I'll throw it into the AI slang translator and see what comes out the other end. Now, JVR, let's just call him JVR, a lot easier on the mouth. But JVR last night in his post-game press conference, talking about his goal and talking about the team's effort altogether, he says, "I thought it was good that we stuck together as a team. I think it was definitely a hard-fought game. 2 good teams. I think tempers were raised a little bit at the end there. Obviously, we were going to stick together as a team. If we feel like we didn't play that was made a little bit earlier in the period there, we just going to try to stick together as a team. I liked how we kept playing and stuck with it. It's that consistency I think we need to find. More of a shift to shift, period to period, game to game. I think we've got it in us, and I think the more we kind of find that consistent execution like that, I think we'll be in really good shape. There's a lot of thinking there for JVR. Let's see what happens when we throw all that thinking into the no cap, recap, slang translator. I thought it was dope that we rolled as a squad. For sure, that game was a total grind. Mad respect to both teams. Things got a little heated towards the end, no doubt. We had each other's backs. If we thought that play earlier was kind of sus, we're all about sticking together. I loved how we kept pushing and staying in it. That consistency is what we got to nail down, shift after shift, period after period, game after game. We got this, and the more we execute like that on the reg, the better we'll be. Now, key word being on the reg. The execution on the reg is really what is going to propel the Red Wings out of a loss like this, returning home, playing a team in which you really think this could be a good tune-up game. Obviously, don't want to take the Predators for granted. Any given day in the NHL, a team like the Predators can beat a team like the Red Wings. But I got a lot of confidence going into tomorrow night's game. I feel like the efforts put forth that really showed, even though they didn't gain a team point, they really showed that they had some resilience in them. And sometimes that's all you can take away from a game. And sometimes that equates to a lot more team points down the road, especially in the near future. So this has been Red Wings Daily. Again, it's presented to you by FanArch. We'll see how the Red Wings do tomorrow night in against Nashville. But until then, LGRW from the PNW.